League weekly recap show. I have two special guests with me today as we are going to break down the second week of Phase 1 of the 2019 PKL. First, on the top, the name is Toby. You might recognize him from PAI 2019 as he is a caster for that, and he is a caster for the PUBG Europe League Contenders, which is ongoing right now. Below him, we have got GClef. You might recognize him as the translator from PGI for the Korea teams. And if you happen to listen to Korean, you would have heard him on the cast as well at PGI. So we're going to talk about week 2 here, guys. I'm so excited to have you. Thanks so much for being on. And Toby, I'm going to start with you. You're our non-Korean guest this week. And but you've been following the PKL quite closely. I've been keeping up to date with your breakdowns of the PKL, and that's really awesome stuff you've got going. So day one, what were your thoughts?
I think right off the bat, what's interesting to me is that, I mean, I don't know what the average Asian or Korean take is on it, but city endings. I mean, is that something that, I mean, I know it happens and the casters go crazy and there are like 31 players alive in the last circle, but like, what's the overall, both for players and for you guys casting, what's like the overall feeling? Do you like them, or is it like, oh, not again?
Go ahead, GClef, yeah.
Like as a caster or like as a viewer or
just like what, like the general Korean feeling, like what's the general sort of, what do you say, like it's just as if it's because in Europe it's like players hate it, casters hate it, viewers love it, you know, like it's great for content.
No,
but
it's a little random. I guess it's a little different. For casters love it. Casters love it so much because they can intensify the terror that's gonna happen very soon. and then like 20 kill feed just scrambles up on the right side of the screen. It's like, so caster, it's a hard job for them, but they love it because it's the action. It's what the viewers love. Actually, I know the pros hate it the most, but it doesn't happen like every single time. Maybe like once a week. There was like the crazy Yasnaya one, week 1.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember that one too. No, so you start with that, and then you go straight into a military game the next one. I mean, it just sets you up for a day of PUBG that's just a mess with a mess on it, honestly. But overall, I mean, they all kind of made it work, I guess you can say. I mean, the fact that that OP Gaming Rangers managed to win both those games, I don't know if that's the coin flip and they somehow guessed right both times, but I mean, two scenarios where oftentimes you say, you can be good and win these sort of games, like, I mean, a city ending or a military game, but the fact that they win them back to back, that to me is pretty insane.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, those are two difficult circles. I mean, for the military base one, their home has kind of been the military base. That the Sosnovka Island has been their landmark. So that one I kind of feel a little bit more. But when I went back and watched game 1, especially the Los Leones finish, I was really impressed with how they moved at the end. And GClef, I want to get your kind of thoughts on what was going on there at the end.
Yeah, that's the game from, you were talking about Miramar, right? Where they just stayed in the pit, not like inside the building like everyone else was.
Right.
They I thought they were going to be hit a lot from the grenades, but they actually had one of the larger pit, not like the small ones from Erangel. So they stayed really contained, and they were actually picking up lots of kills, even stealing some kills, which was great. And then the rotation at the end circle kind of worked out for them because they stayed there for about like 6-7 minutes. And they still managed to rotate in, and they had some like one of those leftovers working for them in a way, so they could actually like clear all the pathways for them to move out, and they get the chicken dinner just like that.
Yeah, I was quite impressed. When I was watching the map stream, that they were not in a great position when those very final circles started closing. I thought they were kind of outside of it with a lot of teams bunched up around them and behind them, and their ability to navigate that into that pit, like you said, GClef, I thought was really fantastic. So OP Rangers, you know, the Escalus OP Gaming Rangers, back-to-back chicken dinners to start off week 2. So that was pretty intense. And then after that, it was Quadro and then SKT. I don't know. It felt a little off after that. It seemed like they set the stage for something so dominant, and then it kind of changed a little, Toby.
Well, I mean, when you set the stage with a military game and a city ending, everything is gonna seem a little boring afterwards, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's
I
true.
guess
Yeah.
what did happen is that we kind of took a little bit of the air out of the balloon, and then it kind of went back to the normal, not necessarily slow paced, but more. I mean, Quattro gets the win, but only with 7 kills, so it's not because they sprint around and have like crazy killing sprees all over the place, but. But still, I mean, pretty good performance overall, and the whole like rotating when you have to and don't do anything overly aggressive and staying alive. But I believe that they have 3 guys alive in the end of the game.
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying
think
to
that's right.
think back,
Mhm.
something like that. I mean, that's impressive no matter how you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a team that just kind of every once in a while they kind of surprise you with these really just quiet, well executed games, and they come through with these chicken dinners. They never really shock and awe you, but they're just kind of there sometimes. And then GClef SKT game 4.
Oh, SKT. That was quite interesting as they were competing for the points with APK from the northern side, actually across the water there. When they finished off towards the cargo place between the mountaintop near Georgia Pole,
Mm.
as they were not even inside, they had to cross the river, and before that they had to go through the entire squad of APK. So
Yeah.
I actually didn't even bother looking at them towards the last circle. I thought they were just going to die. SKT honestly is not doing the best right now. And then I was focusing on the other team, and then after the game, I just thought, how the heck did they actually came in? They used all the vehicles and then just straight in through that bridge, ran into the cargo where they were I believe three squad, and when they actually came in, only two squad left,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
they actually got a really good place, cleaned that up, and then other than that cargo place, other than those container place, it's just wide open area, and as long as you just keep that circle, they just had to win. They couldn't lose after making in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pretty impressed with, especially in that game, how I believe because the circle shifted out of the containers in the end, and then you had VSC or VSG sitting out in that, like this little shop house or the blue house,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you call it, and they had nowhere to go but there. And then Adder, I believe it was Adder, he like single-handedly killed all of them. I mean, you don't just single-handedly kill VSG. I mean, that pretty much never happens. But I'm pretty sure isn't that what happened? He got like all 3 of them. The 3
I
remaining
think
players?
I think you're right.
ESG was also knocked a few times from Entus,
Yeah, they
who
were
was
low,
actually
they were
in the
low.
other cargo, the houses with the cars onto the eastern side. I think they were knocked a few times, and then Adder just found the right timing.
Yeah,
Maybe
true.
they were healing up. We didn't really get to see that action on the screen, but I think that was really cool. Adder is kind of one of those players like I would say Sexic Pig, Mental, maybe Songjang from OGN2. If you just let them go, do their own things, they bring you kills.
Yeah. Well, they did since they won the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Adder had that one really big week back in the PKL number 2 last year, where he really just put SKT on his back and just absolutely mowed everybody down. So we know he's capable of doing those things. So if anyone's going to do it from SKT, it feels like it's Adder at this point. I mean, so they end up with that chicken dinner and a second place finish overall on day 1 of week 2. APK, another surprising team, got 3rd place. La Vega, we haven't heard much from them. They were 4th place. And Entus Force rounds out the top 5. So Entus Force just kind of doing what they always do, just hanging around, getting decent finishes. I mean, they placed, second in game 3, and then they were like 4th or 5th in game 4. But they're always just kind of there, getting kills and stuff. So they kind of perplex me because recently they haven't been like splashy. We used to see them in the past like rip off massive like 20 kill wins or something like that, but they've been a little more conservative, I feel like, recently.
Well, I mean,
Maybe.
it also very much depends on the lobby you're in, right? I mean, sometimes you can get into a lobby where it doesn't necessarily matter how good the teams that you're up against are, I mean, mechanically and stuff like that, but it's the flow of the lobby. Are you allowed to sort of do the thing that works for you, or are you reliant on teams doing other things in order for you to do what works? So maybe it's just the teams they're playing against here, they can't really get into the same kind of steamboating and like kind of rolling people over like that.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We should talk a little bit about some of the other top teams that maybe didn't have great showings on day 1. Detonator, DTN was almost dead last, only scored 9 total points, 7 kills, and 2 placement points on the day. GClef, what was going on with them that day?
Well, I think they were caught. I think they won is the one that they almost one day. Well, one of the round they almost had a chicken dinner, and then they had someone just hiding in the bush.
Yeah.
I think that was day one, right? And then they had the game. They had the entire squad, and then this one single player. I don't exactly remember the name of. He was just sitting in that bush for like 2 minutes, and they just did not know that he was behind. Lost the two members at a critical timing where they actually needed to move in. So basically, lost two members, including Juanita, right there, and they lost that chicken. That was the only round I think they really had the chance. Other rounds they were having few rotational issues, like jumping off the cliff in Miramar and
Yeah.
stuff. So they had some. They had the. It's one of those days where nothing just works, and I think they really had some chances. But if they are a little more careful when they are just sweeping through altogether, I think they have a lot more chances compared to their name value. I don't think they're still showing what they are actually able to do. Like you would know a lot better, of course. We all watched it. PAI. They were just sweeping through everything, not missing a single kill.
Oh yeah, VSG. Yeah. VSG was just on fire at PAI. I mean, Toby, you got to witness that firsthand. Just
Yeah, that was pretty insane.
how dominant that team can just be at times.
Yeah.
Were there any teams on day one, Toby, that stuck out to you as maybe not having their best stuff?
Personally, I'm thinking Hunters. I mean,
Hunters.
Hunters, they're a team that have had things really work for them. But if you look at the stats right here, 11th, 16th, 13th, and then sure, they finished up in the second place, but only with 4 kills. And that was kind of the game where I think they were sitting on the edge for the vast majority of the time, and then they got themselves into a pretty decent compound in the end of things. And so they were never really in a position where they were forced to take fights, well, at all. And in the end, they got off with, I think, somewhere around, I don't even know, was it just like 8 or 10 points on the whole day?
13 points for the whole day.
Oh, 13. Oh, yeah, with the second place, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's all off. Like, that's pretty much all off of that last game because of the second place.
And it's interesting to note that Sexy Pig is out for the Hunters for week 2, and Benz, a former long time ago pro PUBG player who had been serving a year-long ban, is now able to play again. And he came in and stepped in as that shot caller for the Hunters. And day 1 didn't go too well. But let's move on to day 2, because day 2 went a lot better for the Hunters. GClef, what do you think changed there for the Hunters?
Two things. Because it's not. It is a new one where Benz came in Monday, but I do go into their scrims a lot because I do have access, and they have scrims like 1 p.m. They have like 2-3 blocks a day, almost every day except for the days that they have to play. And Benz has been playing in the team member for over a month now, as he was in the team before. And what he actually does is shot calling. Of course his shots are great, but when he focuses on shot calling, it's a little different how he plays. And so whenever he's leading the team, someone else has to pop up from the team. And I think that was Pio on the second day. The reason why they actually literally popped off and got all those points and actually finished first. Of course, I think just keep an eye on Pio and where he is. He's always next to Benz, listening to him and getting actual headshots. Sometimes even snipes. And he's not the one making all the rotational calls, but he breaks through all the other squads. So I think that was actually the key point there. Pio, I think he was actually the MVP of the team.
Yeah, definitely. Pio, the former GC Busan, right? Was he GC Busan last season?
Do not recall exactly.
I can't remember. He was on another team, but I always remember he was definitely the strongest player on the team in terms of killing on the team he was on last time. Toby, were there any other teams that stuck out to you on day number 2?
Overall, like on the whole thing? I mean,
sure.
My go-to team, and I don't know why I say that, but because it wasn't, but now it kind of is. But I mean, Afrika Freaks Fatal, they had a pretty good day on they got 36 points on the day overall. They got themselves that second place with, I believe, 11 kills, I think they got that game. the round 3, the ranked game there. Got himself a really, really good game there. And I mean, they're just a team that's what scares me with Fatal, that they can go out and have those games, but then they can also go. I mean, the very next game they get 15th with 2 kills, right? I mean, it's like they never. You talk about teams being consistent, but they're inconsistent. But because their good games are that good, then it kind of makes up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. They do have really good games. You're right. It was game 3 where they got second place there with a lot of kills. And they just tend to pick up a lot of kills. I believe they're still either number 2 or number 1 in the PKL. Detonator was number 1, and I think they might have fallen off a little. So I think now Freak of Freaks Fatal is the number 1 kills per game leader. I think they're around 7 kills per game. Averaging in the PKL this season, which is really, really impressive from them.
That's
I
high.
mean,
Really high.
yeah, and I want to get to them when we talk about day 3 a little bit more. I have some interesting player to talk about with them. Not just Style, who's their shot caller and all around darn good player. But yeah, the Fatal is just so good sometimes that they can just score a ton of points in one game and basically guarantee themselves a top 5 finish. So yeah, they're really fun to watch. Personally, I was watching VSG pretty closely this day.
Oh yes,
and their chicken dinner in game 2. I spent a lot of time watching this because I'm fascinated by this team because I feel like they have so much potential and they haven't really shown it so far this season. This was their first chicken dinner. And they put a pick on the Hunters, who ended up being the number 1 team overall in the day in this game. When Dangche was kind of lagging behind the rest of VSG, Starlord and the others, Starlord's usually out in front doing the recon role and the scouting role. But Dangche's driving behind them, and he sees the Hunters are kind of trying to make the same rotation. So they set up a blockade and catch the Hunters off guard. Get a knock very quickly. And then Starlord gets knocked himself, but they end up doing a 2-for-1 exchange here and completely knocking the Hunters away from the direction that they wanted to go. And then they bullied a bunch of other teams as they headed up north towards Mansion. And then they just blocked the northeastern edge of the circle, kept the other teams at bay, completely wiped Entis Ace from out there, waited for Element Mystic to attack a compound that Kings Road, who did not have a great week this week compared to last week, was attacking. Element Mystic is blown up by Kings Road and a few other teams. Then VSG comes in, takes the compound, and then from there it was just easy money. They took that game. So I'm really keying in on them because obviously they had the big PAI win. They won the PKL Phase number 2 last year. So I'm really interested to see them. Let's go to thoughts on teams that maybe didn't do as well this week, GClef? Was there somebody you were surprised by on day 2 that maybe didn't do as well as you expected?
No, I want to point out the other way. Danawa actually finished 5th, and I didn't really recall too much of their play, and they actually didn't get too many kills, only 15. 15, and Team MVP, who was actually 6th, also got 17 kills. So in terms of aggressiveness, they didn't really do well, but they did really well in the first round and the third round. That's where they actually got the most points. And the second, fourth, not really. But their rotation, they are really good at sneaking in. Not the trend has been especially for the Korean teams, especially starting last week, they would grab the first gun, even if it's M16. They would just still take some bullets and then just grab the vehicles and run into the circle. And that not too many Korean teams has been doing it. Only like 1-2 teams out of 16. And now like 5-6 teams started doing that within the last week or so. So I'm trying to really follow this trend, and it doesn't matter if the circle is like all the way the military circle or all the way up in the north with half water. Even if the circle is like full land near like Rosehawk Center, they would just keep on doing that. I think that's a really different trend I don't want to see keep on happening, because they make 1-3 rotation. One man gets compound not too far away, maybe like 100 meters, 200 meters away, and then the other 3 would just keep an eye for that person. And I think that's how Danawa really started that rotation. And maybe the other teams, after looking at that, they're giving it a try in the scrims a lot, and they are actually using it in the actual matches. So maybe just keep an eye on Danawa a little bit more, because sometimes by doing these tries, sometimes they're finding themselves really successful, sometimes not. Maybe in a little while, when other teams are doing the same thing, it's not going to work as well. But if they continue to do better than the other teams, I think it's something that you want to maybe you want to try it at home with your own squad.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they picked up the chicken dinner in game 3 there, so they're starting to figure something out. They were pretty not good in week 1. Pretty far down in the standings. Toby,
Pretty
we're
not good. I like that one. They were pretty not good.
It wasn't their week. It wasn't their week.
Yeah.
Toby, were there any other teams on day 2 that stood out to you, either good or
Yeah.
bad?
No, I mean they made up for it. I mean, kind of the same thing that Freak of Freaks did in the in like other aspect of things. But I mean, Ensis Force, and I don't know what it is, but they go 12, 13, 12 in the first 3 games, right? With 2 kills total on those 3 games, and then they get a second place with 7 kills. Sure, that's good. It kind of makes up for it. But that third game, I mean, I don't know what it is, but I mean, for me, I guess representing the Western scene. Entis is one of the teams that we've had the pleasure of seeing a lot playing on the big stages, and I don't know, when I look at their rotations and all the things that I've seen them do that has worked really well, and then I see them, it's as if they play, if not more, and what do you say, anticipant, but like more waiting, like more passive. And I don't know why that is, because they used to be really smart with their rotations, but now they set themselves up in positions sometimes, especially in that third game that ended out in the East. I mean, they just never dared to go in and take a good center spot. They were constantly sort of holding back, letting people go in front of them, and ends up being forced to make a move that gets them all killed.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like the Entis Force so far this season that I can remember seeing in the past. Because I mean, I remember Entis Force when they were at their best, they would do things like set up on the hill that's to the southwest of Pachinki, right? Usually they're a Pachinki team. And then they'd go to that southwest hill and they'd try to pick off people, or at least get information on how the other teams were rotating. And then they would try to make their moves based off of that. And then they'd pop off with these, 20 kill rounds. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's weird to see them not be as aggressive as they used to be.
That just confuses me, because it worked. Like it normally, when you change these sort of things, it's because, oh no, now it's not been working. Now we have to change it up. But they're changing it despite the fact that it worked, and now they're doing something that's not working. It's like, why? Like, what was the idea with going more passive? Maybe again, it could be with the group that they're in, that they don't feel like they can play the kind of style that they want to. But clearly, what they're doing right now is not really working either.
Yeah, I think because we have different groups playing, and sometimes not just the landmarks. We don't really have overlapping landmarks anymore, but we actually have empty spaces sometimes because of that. And in terms of rotation, you do have to think about which teams are waiting for you. I think that's really getting on their heads when they come out. They have so many teams to just think about, and oftentimes, just within the last week, Kale and Indigo has been making some mistakes. And some of them, they're really good at shot. They're really good at their 1v1 to shooting range on themselves. But those two are making some mistakes. Same things happen on Scrim, and I actually saw them doing 2-2 split, because it seems like the teamwork is not working. Let's just try 2-2 and have 2 separate ways of going, because 4 of us are not really getting in together. So I saw that, and that's a problem already, because they're doing splits when they're rotating. Yeah, they're not it's not like 2 cars, 2-2. It's like 2 cars going the opposite direction towards one spot.
I feel like there are 2 ways you can go about a lobby, right? Either you dictate the pace and teams try and adapt, or you sit back and sort of let the flow of the river direct your sort of routing or pathing, and you just kind of go with the flow, right? I feel like they used to be a team that other teams would look to say, can we do this? I don't know, can we? Because Entis is going to do this. Now, instead, they're a team that says, should we do this? Because we don't know what the other... they've become the adapting team, rather than being the team that teams would adapt to. And I do not know why that is, but, I mean... Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it is. I don't know the players, so I can't ask you.
Yeah.
I can't ask them, but
Right.
it's just confusing me
Yeah, I
because
think
they have
right
so
now
they,
it's.
yeah. Oh, continue. Please continue.
Sorry to cut you off there. I think right now is for a lot of the Korean teams. I keep talking about the scrims because scrim is where they actually try lots of weird stuff that they never actually do. And a lot of teams try to go for the landmark and take that over. It never works. And
Well,
when
I mean,
we
you
see
gotta
these kind
try.
of teams, these kind of rotations, having 1-3 different rotations, 2-2 rotations, which we saw many times last year, and it basically never works. You lose a man or two from the other side, and you just lose the strength in your squad, and you can't just get the chicken dinner with 3 men. It's a lot harder. We all know that. So we see all the teams in the world not really trying that as much, but still they're trying these new things. I think they're just stuck in the middle. Okay, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this doesn't work. What do we do?
Yeah.
Literally, it feels like that for OG and Entis' Force right now.
Yeah, just trying to find their groove back, trying to find, what works with this new meta. Because I mean, you look at when I think about the top teams in Korea now, for the most part, I'm thinking about 1-3 rotations where you have a scout in front of your team, especially with the Freak of Freaks Fatal and VSG, where you have a scout out in front of your team, and they are kind of the ones directing the rest of your team. They're like coming in, and the first thing that they see or decide to do, the rest of the team just pounces on it and follows up on it. And I'm not getting that feeling from Force. I either see them doing the 2-2 splits like you talked about, GClef, or they're just kind of all grouped up together in a house, and then they just get busted because their defense hasn't been that great. So, And just
Talking
Force.
about defense, this week was all about defense. And I think it's about time to talk about detonators, right?
Well, we will get to them. We will get to them on day 3 very shortly. We're almost there. We're almost to day number 3. There's just a few other little things I want to talk about, and one team that Patrick mentioned in the chat here that I think we should definitely talk about, who had a better day on day 1, but on day 2 they struggled a lot, is Gen G. What is going on with them, Toby? Like I don't know. They look terrible.
Question. That is a good question, and they have for a while. To me, at least. I mean, sure, they had a decent day and they won, but I mean, they didn't really. I mean, 15th, 15th, 11th, 11th. That's, I don't know. Doesn't sound too decent to me.
Oh wait, no, I was thinking of a different day for them. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter which day, they're gonna be around.
Sorry.
Again, same as Entis Force, and I think even though they're used to playing Korea and that's where they play the most games, they are a team that has been kind of the, what do you say, the sort of the flag holders, the representatives in these big international tournaments. And then when they come back to play in the Korean leagues, because you talked about how Entis Force has gone from doing what you see other teams do in Korea that works, do that, 1 scout up, 3 guys come to the compound. Instead, they start doing 2-2 things. And these 2-2 rotations are things that we see used actually a lot and very often in the European scene. And that might work more often because teams would be more, what do you say, teams pull up on compounds more, like they don't really care. Like if there's a guy in there, they'll pull up on the compound anyway. Whereas in the Korea, more often than not, if there's a compound and people are shooting at you, it's very rare to see, at least for me, that people drive into the compound anyway, unless if like it's the situation where either you go here or you die outside the circle. Like it's only when they have to that they will drive into a compound with people in it. But in the European scene, you have to sit 2-2 because you need, like, you cannot sit one guy alone, because if they figure out there's just one guy, they will just come 4 guys in 2 cars straight into your building and start shooting you. So if they try to do these things that they've seen, the Western teams do this, we know these regions are known to be good, we should try to do what they do, and then they try to do it in a region where the meta is different, then even though it works in Europe, I mean, clearly it doesn't work here. So if that's the kind of same thing they're trying to stick to, because it worked when they played PGI, and I know it's not exactly the same team or lineup, but I mean, it's just there's so many things to it, and this could be one of the reasons why they haven't really had things going that way.
Yeah,
Korean teams actually has been adapting a little more, and they would just split one, like across the bridge, just to get the information. And that when that one person hears some kind of vehicle sound, he gets on that motorcycle or a buggy and they just run the crap away. And they get that information. We see that a little more these days. Not as much as the other regions, but I think that could be a thing for Korea soon too.
Mm.
You know what I've noticed is a big change is that the fact that the motorcycle is gone now
Yeah, it's horrible.
from competitive
Well,
PUBG. It's making this
it might be
1-3
bad.
rotation a little more
It
difficult.
is a death sentence to Miramar. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say it publicly. It kills Miramar that you cannot drive bikes.
Yeah.
Like it screws over so many teams for the rotations. Teams that could make that rotation, because if it goes uphill, there's no vehicle on Miramar that has the same uphill like maintaining speed. So all the cars drive slow, even the buggy, and it starts spinning out and everything. It just is horrible.
And with the motorcycle, you
It's
can actually go up to places where you just cannot go with any other vehicles, like on
Exactly,
top of those
exactly.
crazy flat lands. Only
You
with the
rotate so much
motorbikes.
faster. You rotate faster. You rotate more stable. You don't knock yourself. I mean, it's just everything is better with bikes, especially on Miramar, and it's really killing the map that you cannot drive.
Yeah, I agree. And I also feel like it kind of nerfs this 1-3 rotation we've been seeing because, like, you know, Star-Lord and Style, these guys who've gotten really good at riding the motorcycle and utilizing its speed and quickness and mobility, that's been, you know, nerfed basically by removing it. So I think there's problems there. The one thing I wrote down about Genji, the last thought I have here about them for day number 2, is they have tons of vehicle mistakes. You remember last season, we kept making the joke about Daehui, the former Freak of Freaks Ares player, having vehicle accidents all the time. This season it's been Genji. I see them not, especially Max Zora, like running people over, running themselves over all the time in vehicles. And I think this is causing a lot of problems for them by slowing down their rotations and obviously adding those early knocks into their, you know, their pool of, you know, reserves that they have for survivability.
Yeah, and I do want to add that specifically pinpoint on Esther a little bit because he does want to go in front and make some shot call, and maybe it's a shot call we don't exactly know unless I hear them speak in Korean and know everything what's going on in the game. But whenever he makes a shot call, it's either the teamwork is not there or the shot call's too late.
Oh boy!
Like they would throw.
Sorry guys, they're talking over my my apartment speakers.
Are you having the announcement again?
Yeah, it's an announcement.
What is it? It's to Dustin, so you should always stay inside.
I don't know. Yeah, it's probably something like that. It's probably like the pollution's really bad outside, so stay inside. Sorry, guys. I thought they'd be done with this, but here we go. This is GClef.
Real life Korean problems, man.
As long as you live, as long as you survive, you know.
Oh man, I was hoping they'd be done with this because they did it right before the cast started, but apparently we got something else to talk about. Well, anyway, hopefully this isn't too distracting for people.
Well, Esther is a problem. They
Go
gotta
ahead.
fix something about that, okay?
There we go.
Because I want to talk about Media Bridge from Contenders. Actually, they're
Okay.
actually in scrims of PKL because they used to be in one of the teams from the pros, and even though they're wrecking everyone in the second division, Media Bridge, when I saw them last week twice, they were 14th, 11th, 14th, and 16th. And you know who's right around that area? Genji all the time.
Jeez.
So nothing's really working out for them. It's kind of like Antis Force. Maybe they have to try something new. Maybe even changing a shot caller sometimes actually work. It freshes everyone's minds of how you rotate too. So there needs to be something done. And Esther seems to be the problem for me.
Gotcha.
That's how I see it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, any other thoughts on day 2, Toby? You got anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. I mean, it's just to me. I mean, I don't know all the teams that well as you guys do. You get to work with them pretty much on a daily basis. I don't really have that honor of doing that. But no, I mean, a team that I've seen that I'll be honest about, that didn't know coming into it is Zesty. And they have had some really good games. That's like the thing to me for Korea. Teams will have really good games and they will have really bad games. And you don't see a team that just consistently get like 6, 7, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8. Either they go first place 20 kills or they go 14, 14, 11, 0. I mean, it's just I don't know if is it because people, I don't know why that is. You guys probably know that better than I do.
I mean, I think there are some teams that are pretty consistent. There's a couple, but you're right. there is a fair amount of imbalance, and I think actually part of it is there is a lot of raw talent in the Korean League, like just really, really good individual players, and trying to find the right combinations of teams. And sometimes these players just pop off and they just click on one day, and their recoil control and their ability to shoot and throw grenades and do these things is so good that sometimes it just works. And other times, maybe they're just in the right place at the right time, that kind of thing. But yeah, there is a little bit. It feels like there's a little bit more imbalance in the Korean League. I'm not sure what you think, GClef.
I think it depends. Week 3 is going to be the one that's starting right after the show. It's going to be the real start, I think, for week 1 and 2, because they had group AB, AC, and BC just rotating around. So a lot of the teams were busy figuring out their rotation, how to not get into trouble, because when they change landmark, change the groups, they still have to. So they have 2 different days to play with different teams, different rotations. So that's a lot of studying to do. You're not just fighting against the one single team. So that's a lot of studies for coaches, players, and how to actually use their roster in a way so it makes it so much better. I think that's the reason why they were confused in the first 2 weeks. Starting from week 3, I think we're gonna see a lot more consistent play for the better teams. And Sesti, no comment.
They had a chicken dinner. And with that,
Sesti's like elemental mystic for me.
Well, SQ as well has not been so great so far. But okay, this gives us a good transition into day 3, where Sesti did get a chicken dinner in game number 2. So that was they kind of had a better day that day for sure. Their best day so far, no doubt. But let's start with you, Toby. What were your overall thoughts on day number 3?
Talking about how all teams are inconsistent, I actually want to take that back for a second, because one team that we really haven't talked about at all, and we saw them on Monday on day 1, how they had 2 rough games to begin, but then they kind of made up for it with 2 pretty consistent games, is Danawa, or I don't know if you say AGON, or
Agon.
Or Agon, yeah. 4th, 3rd, 4th, 6th. I mean, that's as consistent as you can get. You almost like 19 kills in the first 2 games, right? That's absolutely insane. And it wasn't just them getting circles and circles. They actually did extremely well to position themselves in properly. So a team that I barely even know, very, very well done. Because I was sitting and watching the first 2 games that they played, and they had a really good performance there.
Yeah, Magne under what's the other one?
Magne under Gak in Onyx. Yeah.
Yeah, in Onyx. These except for Gak is the one that's like a support for the other 3. The fighting, the other 3, they're like bulldogs. They're the fighters, man. They just spread out, gets kills, keeps on moving, and then Gak's the one that grabs all the items and he loots all the things for them, and then delivers it to the other 3 guys.
He's the waiter.
Yeah, he's the
3 kills. I got them for you.
Yeah, I mean, they're a stacked team full of really talented slayers, especially guys like Under. I mean, Under's, he's been a star since he came into, competitive PUBG, originally with Quadro, and then he moved over to Agon after he left Quadro. And he is a guy that I've always kept my eye on as one of the best players in Korea. I mean, I remember in the APL Season 1, he had a squad wipe by himself when a team breached his house. Now, granted, it was with the S12K, but nonetheless, it was still an impressive feat that he pulled off. But yeah, you're right, Toby. They're really, really consistent. And I believe right now, overall, let me just look. I've got the final total standings here. They are 3rd place after 2 weeks of play, behind Detonator and Afrika Freaks Fatal. So I voted for them in every game on day 3 when I was watching on Twitch, and they just could not quite get the chicken dinner to get me the Gosu shirt. I tried, didn't happen. But yeah, they're a team I keyed in on really hard on day 3 too, Toby, and they performed really well.
Yeah, I mean, over the last 6 games, their worst placement was 6th. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
That's really impressive. But
In first week, I thought they just had they have pretty lucky circles. Let's be honest. I thought they were
Yeah.
medals basically. They're just attached to the circles all the time. And then first week, I thought, okay, they're getting a little lucky. I think that's helping them a lot. But in week 2, they break into circles by wiping squads.
Hmm.
That's why they're still up there.
Yeah.
So I think you do have a really good point. Just keep an eye on them. That's top 3 of KPL.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's great. I want to move on to another
That's
team.
Next.
I'm running out of time here, guys. Not really. Actually, we've still got 20 minutes. All right, but GClef did make a special request that we show a clip today, so I'm going to turn it over to this clip, and I'm going to let the Korean casters do this for us, guys. I'll cue you back in when we're in, since I know you won't be able to hear this, but we're going to transition to a scene from day 3 that was a pretty exciting moment. So just a second.
특수부대처럼 지금 진짜 병아리 이렇게 쫑쫑쫑 이러면서
네.
그렇죠. 일렬로
오리 엄마 오리 따라가는 아기 오리처럼
그렇죠.
일렬로 쫓아가야 돼요.
경계하고 있죠.
지금 소리 들으면서 지금
킥 뽑았어요. 킥
수리 뽑았어요.
뽑았어요.
수리
킥
던지기.
뽑았어요.
수리 던지고. 살았어요. 혼자 다 정리했어요.
수비의 디토네이터.
정말.
All right, we're back. So that was a clip of MVP trying to rush the detonator player Aqua 5 while he was in a shack, and you got the excellent Korean commentators there just absolutely losing their minds at this
Did they
moment.
actually say anything other than the word rampage?
Aqua
in the
5!
All I heard was and then that's a word.
They're pretty hype, man. They just
They were.
yeah. So, but Detonator was the team that I know you wanted to talk about a little bit, GClef, because they did come out obviously as the #1 team that day. But what's going on with them? They're popping off this season.
They're getting great spots, and how they're securing their spot is actually pretty insane. Not just their shots by individual players, of course. That's what we saw on the screen. Miramar, when they were just defending that compound from 3 different teams. They had that for a long, long time. That's why they also picked up a lot of points. But the one you saw from the clip, the choo-choo train of MVP squad, choo-choo, and then they just run in to Aqua 5. And Aqua 5 actually tossed a nade, which actually did a lot of damage, brought it down less than 15 or 28 for 2 members of MVP. That's the reason why he also got this instant 3 kills, because of that nade. And not just that, detonators, they actually had 3 men onto the other side, where if you notice the circle, they basically had that contained. As long as Aqua 5 survived there, they have all the knowledge, all the information from the top above. And the reason why MVP had to come is because the other 3 men from the low ground, they had an angle on them, because they could have just stayed there and made it problematic for detonators, but they did not let that happen. So how they control the entire circle by just having 1 man there and then the 3 men, knowing where the danger spot is, that was some beauty of PUBG there.
Yeah, and
I think
chicken dinner there.
Sorry, no.
Yeah, go ahead, Toby.
No, I was just gonna say, I think we can all agree that as no played, I guess you can say, it was by Detonator as extremely embarrassingly horrible was it by MVP. I mean, I know they gotta go down and clear it, but that is not how you clear a shack at all. You don't want to hit 3 guys one after another. I mean, that's just sentencing yourself to death. That's not what you want to do, because the first guy goes in, he gets knocked, all of a sudden he's blocking the entrance. I mean,
yes, that's usually what happens.
You don't push like that. It's the same thing with people try to push upstairs, and then like the first guy gets knocked and the other guys kind of get stuck on the stairs and they all die because of it. You just don't do that. It's a big mistake for them, I believe.
Yeah, I think a bit of a panic moment there for MVP,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
who otherwise had a pretty strong day overall, I think, right? Like, they played pretty well on that day. And I remember, GClef, you and I were talking a little bit before, and you were saying that MVP has been doing really well in their scrims leading up to this week.
Yeah, just the day before, on Thursday, I believe, when they had the scrim, they had a round with 20 kills. And scrim, it's not just, it is practice, but still they go up against all the top tier Korean teams, basically all the top squads from PKL. So they really I think they really have the rotation down. and that's where they actually got the confidence to rush onto the others. So they were, compared to all the top teams, they were a little bit passive. But after that scrim getting some good results, I think that boosted them to have this choo-choo train. No, I'm just
Drove
kidding.
all
The,
the trains
other
and
rounds,
it
they
over.
actually did really well, though. They
Yeah.
had some really nice controls. One mistake, that's why they didn't have a full squad at the end. They had to rush in because that was basically the moment if they're going to win or not. But other than that, they actually had really good circle control. They are a team that knows how to win. So with that confidence level, if they just keep at the momentum at the same level, I think they can climb up a little higher. I believe they're still in like a top 7 in the overall ranking.
Let me.
Yeah, they're sitting in 6th place right now.
Yes.
Six. Yeah. Yeah, and they're doing really well. They had a chicken dinner. They won the Miramar game on day number 3. So this is nice to see because this is another team, Toby, that we've seen play internationally, right?
Yeah,
the
for sure,
MVP
for sure.
team. We've seen in a couple different tournaments, but here in Korea, actually, they've been not great.
No,
And
not at all.
yeah, so it's nice to see them start to turn it around. Was there anything else, Toby, that you keyed in on day number 3 here on week number 2?
If we're talking specific team, I mean, you talked about Element or like Mystic, right? I mean, 5th,
Yep.
7th, 3rd, and then they win the final game, I think. Right? Yeah, they did win the final game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's of course now it's tricky when you have a break because then teams get to sort of sit and think things over and watch all the video and stuff like that. But I'm excited to see because they kind of got something going, finishing with a 3rd, coming into a 1st place, and then they're gonna be playing again here in week 3, and we'll see how. Are they playing Monday?
They play today, yeah.
It's
the same team.
So
Yes.
they finished 5th, 7th, 3rd, 1st. I mean, that's a pretty good momentum to carry with you. But it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep it going because right now they're sitting. Oh, they're in 8th. They're just 5 points behind Kings Road. So
Yeah,
I mean, if they can keep that going today, then I mean, there's a lot of points for them to be picked up.
Yeah, I think they're a dark horse for sure. Do you have any thoughts on them, GClef?
Element Mystic, they had
Yeah.
a round win, which was made by, I forget it was either Ares or Fatal, one of the Africa teams. They basically helped them to win in the military island. I think that was a really good point booster for them. As because I'm trying to every week I'm trying to focus a few teams because there are way too many teams for me to catch all the actions. And so far I haven't done that for Element Mystic too much. But after that win, and how I saw them win was questioning Korean casters, Element Mystic, and then I'm going like, how the heck did they actually win? They're not supposed to win with that kind of angles, not really rotating. Because I was looking at the map feed, because PKL always have the map feed on the side, and usually the teams that know how to win, they would spread in not too far, not too close, but keep all the angles and try to focus fire. But they actually did not even have a spread. It seemed like they did not even know how to win at the before the last circle. So I still have lots of questions for them. Maybe in the coming weeks they will prove me wrong, and they can climb higher. That's totally possible.
Yeah, I mean, they had a very strong day, like you said, Toby, on day number 3. So there's somebody that's the old Lunatic High that's what they used to be. Maybe that's a name that people are more familiar with back from the Apex Overwatch League days and that kind of thing. They now are Element Mystic. They changed their name last season. So they've never been too splashy, but maybe they're trying to pull it together. Yeah, I think day 3 is kind of more of what I would expect. I mean, I look at the top 6 teams in there, and you got Detonator, Aegon, Afrika Freaks Fatal, and the Rangers in there. So clearly some of these teams are just good enough that even with all the kind of chaos that we've seen at the beginning of this season, they're still consistently getting it done. I mean, especially Detonator and Afrika Freaks Fatal, who are right now the top 2 teams, pretty undisputed. I mean, they're 20 or 30 points ahead of VSG, who's in 3rd in the overall standings. So they're really setting themselves apart. And one player I wanted to talk about is that maybe people don't know about from Afrika Freaks Fatal. He's also a new member to this team, is NN.
Oh yes,
This guy had a magical day on day
He had
number
an
3.
insane day. Yeah.
Yeah, 12 kills total, so averaging 3 kills around, 19 kills for the week for him. So he had a really strong week. And that kill he had where Merrill from Griffin.
Was that in the granny house?
Yeah, in the granny house.
Yeah, I know what you- yeah.
That reaction time was just insane. I mean, how do you make that
He
shot?
must have hurt him, right? He must have hurt him on the roof. But
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's what I
stopped
thought.
him
That's what I
down.
thought too. But he was full health when he was
Yeah.
dropping down.
I mean, yeah, he must have hurt him, and then it's just like really fortunate. I mean, the fact that he reacts to it—that's absolutely insane. But it must have been like a double headshot or something like that, mid-air on towards him. That's pretty insane.
Yeah,
The fact
and
that it wasn't even AK, it was an M4, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it must be double headshot.
yeah. I mean, that was just nuts. And I mean, I guess if you're Merrill was the player, and he, I mean, you got to think like, okay, I can drop in front of this window. There's no way a player can just snipe me as I'm falling out that, like out that granny window, out the attic. There's no way that could happen. And he does. That was just one of the sickest reaction shots I've ever seen in PUBG. So I was really having fun. Was there anything else anybody wanted to talk about on day 3? Toby, was there anything else that kind of piqued your interest there?
No, honestly, like in depth, as I said to you guys as well, I only got to watch the full sort of 2 first games. The last 2 games I had to kind of watch in the VOD and kind of clip through. I'm really busy in the Ukraine these days with also casting PUBG, but on the other side of the planet. So no, I don't really have a whole lot of in-depth stuff on day 3.
Great. GClef, any final thoughts on day number 3?
Day 3, I believe we had 2 military circles.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Rangers, they start there and they end up there. So basically, they loot for the first, and the first one they actually looted all the way, and came out after 10 plus minutes. The second one they came out from the military island, not the island, the military base, after 6-7 minutes. So they're trying 2 different things. Which one works a little bit better, depending on the circle shift, of course, that matters a little bit. But they're changing the timing of coming out from the base, even if they had the circle, because sometimes you do want to gatekeep. And Mental had some fun with that in week number 1, but seems like they're not doing that anymore. They just want to get better place to stay in the compound until like maybe 20 players left ish, and then start shooting, get all the kills. And it actually does not work out all the time. When they have the first-handed info, they're the first ones in the island, first of all. And I want to keep an eye on, because Korea has been getting a lot of military circles, and Rangers, they should be winning in rotations and not really losing any members, because they don't really have places to move around too much. They shouldn't be losing members, but they do. So if they brush up on that, I think they can win a lot more. I'm going to focus a little bit more on Rangers. And also, guys, we never talked about Team Square.
Team
They did their best on day number 3.
Well, I think on day number 1 they were like 8th, and then day number.
I mean, honestly, I'm sorry for interrupting, but
Oh,
if
it's
you
okay.
on day 3, now that we're not making fun of them, but if you're a team that can go out in 9th place, but get 10 kills before you do, I mean that's pretty impressive. Not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just can't find ways to get into those end game situations and get those rank points. They're getting kills, and they look not bad sometimes in that respect. But they're just not able to get themselves into those late game situations. It kind of reminds me of like how Aegon was last season, where they would get tons of kills but not really get rank points. Like I could remember one day Aegon had like 29 kills or something like that, but it's 0 rank points. So it was just like, I mean, granted that was the more brutal rank point system from last season.
Yeah.
But
I'm not making. I wasn't trying to make fun of them, but they were getting some kills at like, especially in Miramar. You run. Let's see who runs faster and grab the bullets and guns first, and then you end up grabbing the bullets. The other guy grabs the gun. We're like, huh? What do we do now? So they had those kind of moments, and some vehicle accidents and kills like that. I think that also helped. In terms of Miramar games, their rotation is a lot smoother. They're finding a lot of holes because there are more angles in FPP to work with the terrains, and not as much in Erangel. I think they're a little bit less experienced compared to the other teams in Erangel. I think that's why they're really suffering on round 2, 3, 4. Maybe we can see them climb up a little bit more, but Team Square is also a team that has lots of shot calling issues when they rotate, so they can't really find holes and make through like Aegon does. Aegon somehow miraculously they know exactly all the information, and then they just drive through like snakes. But it's the other way around for Square.
I see. All right. Well, sounds like we've covered all 3 days pretty well. Before we get going here, I just want to get some predictions. Maybe the top 3 teams you think we'll see come out of PKL Phase 1 as our teams that are going to qualify for the Face It Global Summit coming up in April. I'm going to let GClef go first on this one.
Okay.
And give me the 3 teams. I mean, now we're in week 2, so it's a little easier. We know a little bit more of how
So it's gonna
things
get
are
easier
filtered
every
out.
week, right?
Yes,
Can I come
yes.
back in week 5 and do it again?
All right. We booked you for week
After
5.
Week 6 as well.
then we could look really smart. All right, GClef, 3 teams.
Of course. Okay, 3 teams. VSG, of course. I think they should have got a lot more chickens. So I think they're a really strong team. They just have to be in top 3, I think. VSG and Detonator, and the third one I'm gonna pick is actually MVP. I think they are really getting the momentum, some confidence boosters, and after the crazy things that they've done last week, I hope they continue through the momentum and pick up a lot of points. I think they're about at the same level. If they can just go one step higher, maybe they can just go into top 3, top 4. So those 3 teams: Detonator, VSG, and MVP.
Nice. All right, very good. I like it. MVP. A little bit of a dark horse pick there. Toby, what do you got?
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say if these guys do well in week 3, then I believe in them, and that's Aegon. I mean, if they can keep 6 games in a row with no worse than a 6th place, that's really, really impressive. Now it could just be not luck, but fortunate, and we'll see if they can keep it going. But if they can, then I believe they could be a team up there, and then VSG probably as well. Gotta stick with them now that I had the honor of casting them at Pi. And then 3rd team, it's probably gonna be Fatal.
Yeah.
Even though they've had a couple of games where I've like, what are you guys doing? I did like when they have bad games, they're really bad. But then they also pull off insane wins, so it kind of makes up for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Style he feels like kind of hit or miss as their shot caller sometimes. He was a lot of miss early on in the PKL number 2 last year, but he started to really pull it together as the season went on. And yeah, I think you're right. I think if his shot calling continues to improve, they're a really scary, dangerous team. I can't remember who I picked last week, so I think I did VSG, Kings Road, and Aegon. So I'll stick with that, whatever. No, none of us picked Detonator, the top team in the league right now.
No, I did.
Oh, you picked Detonator. Oh, you
Yeah,
did GClef.
Detonator,
You're right.
VSG,
You picked
MVP for
GClef.
me.
All right, so at least somebody covered Detonator for us, so that's good. All right, so
Said Rangers though.
Nobody said Rangers.
No, don't trust in Rangers. They got like 3 military circles in 3 days, I think. So they got a little lucky last week.
All right. Yeah, I don't know about Rangers. I'm still... they're on paper, that whole team is above average, right? They're all above average players. And we'll see if... I'm curious to see if they can make it work. All right, but before we go, Toby, I wanted to give you a chance to plug the PUBG Europe League contender stuff. So if you give us some information about how that's going down.
For sure. We actually just yesterday finished week 1. As I said, I don't know if I said that on stream, if that was before the stream, but the way that it's working now that the Pro League got delayed is that we cast Thursday, and then this week last week it was Group A. Next week it's going to be Group B, and then the last week they're gonna be doing half, so it's A-B. And then when that's all said and done, then they'll be doing a final, and then after that, things are happening that haven't been confirmed yet, so you'll just have to wait and see. But
So we're
it's
still
been
waiting.
pretty interesting. There's been teams that had abysmally horrible first days, and then it's insane how much can happen off of like 12 hours in a room with your team saying, guys, this didn't work. We need to change something. And then they come back the next day, turn things completely upside down and start stomping everything. We had a team that went, I think, something like 12, 11, 13, 6th or something. And then on day 2, they start off by winning 2 games in a row. It's like,
wow.
Okay, where did that come from?
Jeez.
So for sure, a lot of upsets in the sense of teams that you were expecting to do good, but they didn't in the beginning. But also because if those of you guys who don't know, the European region that it is that I'm covering, it's not only EU as we normally know it now. It's been incorporated both with the full CIS region, so it's all of Russia, Kazakhstan, those regions as well, and also MEA, so Middle East, Turkey, down there. And there's a MEA team called We Need a Home. They don't have an organization. And they're the only, I want to say one of 2 MEA teams in the contenders that is just doing extremely well. Like their rotations are on point, and they're yesterday they really started fragging out as well. So that's
awesome.
That's good, because MEA is kind of like a region that's not really getting a lot of credit for them actually having some pretty decent players. So glad to see them kind of waving the banner and saying we're here as well.
That's fantastic. That's great to hear. I'm excited about that. What time and where can we watch the contenders?
It happens on twitch.tv/PEL_esports. So jump in there. And also you can go onto Twitter, PEL_esports, and follow in there if you want to watch it all. And for time, let me just really quickly do a CET to KST.
Caster bath time.
Just Google it.
How do I do this? I can't find it. Okay, so it starts at 8. It starts at 6 o'clock Thursday, Friday in the evening here. So that's probably gonna be in the middle of the night for you guys.
Yeah. That's later.
It's like 1 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah.
And then in the weekends it starts 2 hours earlier. So you can maybe grab one game before you go to bed, or maybe on the weekdays you can grab a game if you're waking up early to go to school or whatever. Then you can get a little game while you're eating your breakfast before you leave.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. Well, excellent, man. That's great. Things seem to be going well over there. So I think we're all really excited now that we've got everything in full swing, just about, for the PUBG world. All the contenders leagues are going. And I can't wait to see how things shape out. GClef, do you got any closing thoughts? Anything you want to give me?
I've seen a lot of English chats in PKL, and don't be afraid, because there are way too many Koreans, and we're always there. It's most likely just at least 2 of us or 3 of us going to be in the chat, or even more. There's Joe and Ending Life too, a lot of the time. So we have a lot of chats, so do not be afraid to ask questions. I don't think they ban you or time you out for typing English. And actually, it's today's actually a special, really cool day. So I don't know if this schedule goes like this every single time, but what they had on Friday, Group A and C, they actually have them go again on Monday. So compared to the Friday games, they do the analysis over the weekend, and then they bring some crazy different trials or results on Monday. So the Monday games are actually a lot more exciting. And if you just compare the scores and how they did before, and I'm really excited to find out very soon, in just about 15 minutes, what's going to happen.
Yeah, we're about getting ready to start the PKL Week 3, Day number 1. In about 1 hour from now, the games will get going. You can find those on twitch.tv/PUBG Korea. And there's also a map stream, which is just _map at the end. So you can watch that too and get all the PUBG Korea action you guys need. Well, I think that does it for us, guys. Thank you both so much for being on. I want to thank my Korean apartment announcers for making a guest appearance on the show. I love that they could just broadcast whatever they want. They paid me in kimchi and samgyeopsal, so it's just some food for me this week. But guys, thank you so much for being here. We'll be back again next week to break down week 3, so please join us. And that is it for us. Later, everybody.